got together, which it seems like literally a decade ago, Ben. But remember, we sat down in person, broke bread, shared drinks,
and had a blast.
Had a grand conversation. You came in the next day. We had a really wonderful chat for our podcast. Literally seems like years ago.
And back up, I mean, you were there for an event where there were 30 people in a room.
That's right.
And you were expounding on your regular narrative, but also warning people of what we were going to see on the COVID side of things.
Yeah, that's true. Right?
That must have been one of the last events
It was. I remember it well because flying back out of the, your lovely Toronto airport, that was quite an experience. It was just jammed with people wall to wall. Everyone was trying to get back to or go somewhere right before they shut down stuff. So it was just wall to wall people, and just, of course, the most horribly unsafe place available. But that was like the weekend before everything really went to hell.
I have to say that when you actually came and spoke to us, and I remember sitting across the table and very arrogantly feeling like you were being an alarmist.
Yeah, right. A fear monger.
And then the next day we had our podcast, and I was beginning to I was still skeptical, but beginning to sort of think that you might be onto something. And then I think it was the next day that Tom Hanks announced that he and his wife had it, and they canceled the NBA, and this got really real. And there was this weird shift in the zeitgeist, almost in an afternoon, right? When everybody went from being disbelievers to believers.
And this is the really crazy thing, but I've have a couple of really good friends who are around the Houston Rockets. And we were texting. One of them in particular knew a family member of someone in the Jazz, and then also someone who was there at in the Houston, on the team. And so you're not going to believe this, but I'm the one who broke the Rudy Gobert story. It was me on Twitter. It was literally me. It wasn't an NBA reporter. It wasn't a ESPN reporter. They all got it like 15 minutes after I did, and so I tweeted out saying, "Oh well, Rudy Gobert, he's COVID positive, and that's why they're all in the locker room and why they've shut down this game." And Rusty immediately calls me. My partner Rusty calls me on the phone and says, "Where'd you get this information? Because you're gonna need to retract that. What the hell do you know about stuff?" I said, "No, I got a source," and I told him who the source was. He said, "All right, goodbye me." And so the whole NBA shut down. Wow. Yeah, that was me.
That's crazy.
I broke that story.
Yeah, you definitely had your finger in the pulse of that thing early on. How far back? Do you remember when you started talking about it?
Yeah, it's late January. Late January. It was because the data was coming out of China, and it was obviously being falsified. Meaning it followed a function and a smoothness that you just can't you don't see in nature or in human society confronted with a exponentially expanding virus. So that's when I really started focusing on it and looking at the Chinese narrative that was at first domestically directed, then internationally directed. That narrative was then, monkeyed by the World Health Organization to, I think, horrible effect. And then it was the narrative of it's just the flu and we've got this under control, was taken over by the U.S. government and most governments, particularly the U.S. government. So it's just been, one series of, my word, betrayals after another of governments and the way that they've tried to control and shape the narrative around a plague.
Governments and large organizations like World Health Organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was, I think Eric Weinstein had an interview with Joe Rogan where I think it resonated with me so well. It was about, again, I was thinking about the narrative, the idea about masks, right? And why they came out with the narrative that masks are a bad thing. I remember seeing the video where I'd read a white paper on the use of masks in Japan. And this is, again, like shortly after we chatted.
Right.
And then seeing the World Health Organization coming out with this PSA video that said, if you wear it, you're going to get it because you're going to be playing with it.
Yeah.
It's likely that it's worse if you use it.
Yeah.
And so transparent, in my view, that it was about protecting. It was the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It was about trying to protect the healthcare workers. And Eric pleaded in that podcast, like, what if we just changed that narrative to one of, dear patriot, we have these people in need. For if you have masks, if you're hoarding them, he did a much better job than I would ever do. But there was a narrative there that could have been used that wasn't lying to the public.
Rodrigo, I've been very involved with N95 masks, getting them to doctors, nurses, EMTs. So far we raised about $1 million. We've distributed about 150,000 of these masks in packets of 100 and 200 to about 1,200 or 1,250 individual clinics and hospitals and fire departments all across the United States. And so I've been so involved in the whole PPE question of medical masks, right? Medical masks. And you are so right, Rodrigo. I mean, for me, it was Fauci in particular. I mean, the World Health Organization, okay, who's paying attention to that? But it was Fauci, whether it was in 60 Minutes and then later, saying, and this is what really bugs me, right? So you're absolutely right. The intent was, let's call it a noble lie, right? Fauci knows perfectly well that the reason that healthcare workers wear these masks is they are effective, right? They keep the wearer from getting sick, right? They don't do anything about the spread, but they are armor. They're that personal protective equipment for the wearer. And I don't approve, and I in fact, it just, like Eric was saying, and others have mentioned as well, the whole idea of lying to the public for the quote unquote greater good, it always blows up in your face. Always, without exception. It never works. The noble lie. Absolutely right. But here's what made it worse. Rodrigo, was that what Fauci said was not only that, oh, no, you don't want to wear those medical masks, but he also said you don't want to wear the surgical masks either. You don't want to wear the mask that we wear today, right? Which, in backtrack, people say, oh, there was a shortage of those. Blah. Bullshit. There was never a shortage of surgical masks. There was never a shortage of these masks that we wear today in public, because these masks are just designed to, just stop, the extent of the particulates you're breathing out, and it's to keep others from getting sick. It provides no protection or very limited protection. And the idea that these masks were somehow in short supply, it's just bullshit. So it was this knowing mistruth, right? That again, it always blows up in the face of government or corporation that tries to do it. And it's that nanny state, we know what's right for you, so we're going to lie to you kind of thing. The way you would treat your 3-year-old, and that burns me up more than anything.
And a lot of people.
How do you prevent it, though? How do you prevent the phenomenon? So word gets out, there's a pandemic. The N95 masks are helpful. There's an instinct to protect your family, your loved ones. What prevents people from seeking out that protection? Because
those masks weren't available, Adam. You couldn't buy those masks. So the way we got them, we had to design like this underground railroad of masks. We had, it was Intel, actually. It was a company that kind of approached us, or not the company. Let me take that back. It wasn't ever the company. It was employees at the company, right? Saying, hey, we can buy these on our own here in China, and we can ship them over to you in like packets of 200 and 300. We could stuff them in envelopes and send them to you.
Amazing.
And it was literally this underground railroad of getting 30 or 40 people to do that got us really going on getting masks out here that we could then distribute to doctors and nurses and EMTs and the like. those masks, you couldn't buy them here. So it's not like, oh, there was going to be a run on Walmart to get N95 masks. I mean, and they didn't exist.
But just curious, did you ever have any individual or group of individuals who did have them to distribute to you ever, or was it always this underground market that you dealt with?
For us, it started with the that underground railroad of just good people, going out as individuals. This kind of bottom up effort in doing it. The reason it's very difficult to get corporations involved is I remember Facebook had 900,000 N95 masks, right? Why Facebook is hoarding 900,000, but they've all got their disaster plans, right? And their campuses at, Google's the same way, Apple, they've all got this. And so, they will make a show, and it's a good show, don't get me wrong, I'm glad they do it, of giving them to a state or federal emergency management group, a hospital system, let's say. The problem with that is that it's the same problem we have in our economic system. It's a trickle-down system of PPE in the same way that we've got this trickle-down system of monetary policy and everything else in our world today, where the idea is let's make the rich even richer, whether it's money or PPE, right? And eventually some will trickle down to the clinic, in Port Charles, Louisiana, right? And of course the answer is this stuff never trickles down. So our goal was never to compete with Facebook's got 1 million, N95 masks, well, good for you, give them to the FEMA and, they'll sit in a warehouse forever, right? We're not going to compete with them, but we weren't going to wait on them. So what that meant was starting with that very grassroots underground railroad of masks, and then finding suppliers. These are all typically Chinese suppliers of KN95 masks, because you can't get 3M masks. They don't exist for ordinary people to buy. And, over time you find good, solid suppliers who aren't trying to rip you off. And you find out, what makes for a good mask and what doesn't. So, mistakes are made, but that's what it took.